everyone. Welcome. We're really excited for you to be here. We'll just be getting started in a moment, letting everyone join. Please mute yourself if you're not muted, since we have a lot of folks on the call today. We'd love to hear from where you're calling in from, so feel free to drop that in the chat. And also, I'm going to launch a poll because we'd also like to know what brought you today. We're just going to wait another minute or two, and then we will get started with the lobby training. But in the meantime, we'd love to hear from where you're calling in from in the chat, and feel free to fill out the poll and let us know why you're here. Just for folks who are joining, again, love to hear where you're calling in from. Feel free to put that in the chat. And we'd love to hear about why you're joining us. So feel free to fill out the poll that should have popped up on your screen. Right.
Oh, I ain't got nothing that popped up on me.
Again, if you're just joining us, thanks for your patience if you've heard this a few times, but feel free to drop in the chat where you're joining us from, what part of the country. Looks like we have folks from all over the place: Orlando, West Virginia, Indiana, North Carolina, as well as there should be a poll that popped up on your screen just to let us know why you decided to join the lobby training today. Awesome. All right, so we're going to get started because we have a pretty packed agenda. So I am going to end this poll here in a minute and share my screen, and we will begin. Thanks for everyone who filled it out. Looks like we have folks who are here for all different reasons. If you did select other, we'd love to hear in the chat why you decided to join us. It looks like there's a few people there. Again, if you're just joining, last time I'll say this, feel free to share where you're joining from in the chat and also fill out the poll as to why you're joining us. And we will begin. So thanks guys for your patience. All right, so you're joining us for Lobbying 101. And my screen is taking a moment. Here we go. We're really excited today because we have a full staff on the call. My name is Lisa Trope. I'm an engagement specialist with Solar United Neighbors, and I work with, 6 of our states. We also have Liz on the call, who's our solar advocacy campaigner, as well as 11 of our state directors. So as you can see here, we have a lot of our state directors on the call. They're really excited to be speaking with you during a breakout session we'll do later in the call about their work happening in the state and the ways that you can get plugged in. So we will continue into the training if I can get my PowerPoint to work. So again, my name is Lisa. We have state directors from across the country on this call. We're really excited for them to be here. We're going to go through some Zoom logistics and meeting norms, our theory of change. We'll also have Liz speak with you all for a few minutes about 30 Million Solar Homes campaign. It's a federal campaign that we just launched. Then we'll be talking about lobbying remotely and testifying. And then lastly, we'll be doing national and state breakout rooms where we will be talking about 30 million solar homes, as well as legislation happening in the 11 states that we're currently working in. So by now with the pandemic, you probably have an idea of how to use Zoom, but just in case, in the left-hand corner, you can unmute yourself. If you are not speaking, please keep yourself muted. However, this will be helpful for the breakout room so you know how. Also, if your device, you should have a camera and you can turn your camera on and off. Of course, we would love to see you all and interact in that way. But at the end of the day, just do what feels good for you and comfortable. Again, in the chat, you can find the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Click chat to open up the chat window and feel free to leave messages there. You can also leave comments and ask questions in the chat function. Since there are a lot of us on the call today, we ask that you use that, at least for the bigger group, and then for the breakout rooms, you'll have more time to actually connect one-on-one. And then finally, for the speaker, you can have a speaker view or a gallery view. So if you would like, in the right-hand corner, if you just want to be able to see the speaker on the screen, you can change to that. If you want to be able to see a larger group of folks, you can change it to gallery view. So meeting norms, please be respectful, be courteous, please be mindful of others' feelings. You know, we all are coming onto this call from all different walks of life and cultures and different places in our lives. So just be kind. Also, during the breakout rooms, please allow for an opportunity to step up and step back. So what that means is if you have been speaking a lot or answering or asking questions and you notice there's other folks in your breakout room who maybe haven't had the opportunity to speak, taking a moment to step back so that other folks can step up. And then lastly, please don't be shy. We want to hear from you. So feel free again to leave comments or questions in the chat. Okay, so our theory of change. So Solar United Neighbors is really unique in that we help folks go solar, as many of you most likely know. We work within communities and cities on solar co-ops. And once individuals do go solar with us, we organize, join together in these communities and come together to fight for our energy rights through different solar policy. I think it is important to note that, of course, we work with folks who also maybe can't go solar at this time. So for example, I rent my home. I cannot have solar on my roof at this time, but I still am passionate about solar energy and I care about solar policy. So everyone is welcome, but we do have a really unique theory of change in that we also help folks in that kind of beginning stage of going solar and then allowing them to come together to fight for their energy rights. So for a few,
Lisa, can you fix it so we can see not the speaker view?
can you see my screen?
We can see your screen, but if you click swap displays up at the top corner, we'll be able to see the.
Oops.
There we go.
Oh.
Nope.
It did it briefly.
Let me just, sorry about that, guys. 1 second. Oh. Did that work? Or can you? You can't.
Not yet.
All right, let's try this again. There's always something. Can you see the PowerPoint now? Okay.
Yes, that's perfect.
Perfect. All right. Back on track. So I'm going to turn it over to Liz, who will give us an overview of a really exciting campaign we just launched for 30 million solar homes. So Liz, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here and really exciting to be working on this campaign. So what is 30 million solar homes? It's an equitable economic recovery proposal built on catalyzing rooftop and community solar, and it addresses social injustice, economic downturn, and environmental and climate crises by creating millions of jobs, generating billions of dollars in local investments, fighting climate change, reducing air pollution, lowering energy bills, increasing equality, and increasing resiliency of our grid. So it includes a focus on expanding existing programs and expanding solar in particular to low-income communities. 30 million homes would be about 1 in 4 homes in the United States with solar. So that's a lot of homes going from around 1 to 2 million now to 30 million. And we want to get there in 5 years. But solar is already installed on 1 in 4 homes in Australia. So if they can do it, we can do it, right? Next slide. And 30 million solar homes is a campaign of Solar United Neighbors, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance, or ILSR, and the Initiative for Energy Justice. And you can learn more and take action at 30millionsolarhomes.org. We have petition there, and we invite everyone here to sign it and share it with others and really show how much support there is for this idea. We also have an organizational sign-on letter, and we've already had more than 275 organizations sign on, from big national groups like the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters to the Sunrise Movement, and we act for environmental justice along with solar businesses of all sizes, including Sunrun and Sunnova and a number of small installers. Overall, we've had 23 national advocacy organizations, 19 equity and energy democracy organizations, and 141 regional, state, local organizations, in addition to 97 businesses and 18 faith organizations. So we're really excited about that. And if you are connected to organizations, we'd love to have them sign on, of any size. And the reason that we're here and the focus of this training is on lobbying. So we'll dig into that more, and I'm hosting a breakout later where we can dig in a little more to the policies and talk more about lobbying around 30 million and supporting that. I'll send it back to you, Lisa.
Awesome. Thank you, Liz. And for folks who are in states that we do not have a state director currently, you'll be joining us for the 30 million solar homes breakout. So we'll be able to dive a little deeper into lobbying your legislator for that. I also wanted to, if I can get it to work, technology is so much fun. It looks like it won't let me with sharing my screen, but we'll have another poll here in a little bit. Actually, look, there we go. So our next poll, we just love to hear about how you've been involved with policy or advocacy work, or if this is your first time. So a poll should have popped up on your screen, and we'd love to hear from you. Looks like a lot of folks have. Some have a little bit, some are brand new, so that's really exciting. So we're glad that you all are here to continue to learn more about lobbying, or to maybe for the first time learn more about lobbying. So I'll leave that up just for another moment. So what is lobbying? It's meeting with an elected official to learn of an elected official's stance and to influence the elected official on an issue. So it's part learning, education, and also partially working to influence that elected official. So there's a number of ways we can lobby our elected official. The simplest way is often called collectivism or mass online action. So this could be signing a petition. These can be really important, especially if you are meeting with a representative. If you have 4,000 or 5,000, 10,000 signatures, or even just 100, 200, 300, depending on your if you're on the local, state, or federal level, it can be a great way just to show that there is mass support for an issue. So that's one way to take action. Then from there, you can tag your representative on social media. Also, writing personal emails or letters, or LTE, a letter to the editor, can influence your legislator. Personal phone calls. And then finally, the two we'll be speaking about today, which is virtual testimonies at a hearing, as well as virtual meetings with your representative. So thank you to everyone who filled out the poll. Looks like we're kind of split, which is great. Thanks again for being here. And then this is a really great graphic. This was based on a survey of congressional staff conducted by the Congressional Management Foundation. So it just kind of gives you an idea that in-person visits with your legislator, your representative, does make a big impact, as well as emails, letters, and editorials. But the most impactful thing you can do is meet with your legislator and let your stance be heard. So we'll briefly just go through how a bill becomes a law. This is going to be very brief, but I think this can be really important because when you are setting up a meeting with your legislator, it can give you a better idea. Has the bill been introduced yet? Has it been introduced to a committee, and so on? So a bill needs to be introduced by a representative. Sometimes this bill comes directly from the representative, but often it comes from a representative having a conversation with folks in the community or with organizations that work on a specific issue. So if you're working with an organization or within a community, you would work with a representative to draft and introduce a bill. From here, the bill moves to a committee. So the committee is usually somehow associated with that bill. So an example, if it was a solar bill, it might go to the Energy and Finance Committee. This committee is comprised of a small number or a smaller number of folks from either the House and the Senate. Often these committees do hold a public hearing, and this is where you can come in. These public hearings gives committee members the opportunity to hear from the public about what they think on a specific issue. From there, the committee will vote on the bill, and if it is passed by a majority within the committee, it moves to both the House and the Senate floor for a full vote. It has to also pass through the House and the Senate with a majority vote. And then from there, depending on if it's federal legislation or if it's state legislation, it moves to the governor's desk or the president, who can then sign or veto it. At this point, you're hoping you have enough support that they sign it into law. But if for some reason they do veto it, the legislator can vote to override the veto with about, I believe it's a 2/3 majority vote. So this just gives you an idea of how a bill becomes a law. And when you are lobbying a legislator, it can just help you kind of figure out where you are at in the process when you are lobbying them. So we'll go through some of the steps. So lobbying, here's some 5 steps for you: research and preparation, organize others to join, schedule the meeting, attend the meeting, and after the meeting. So your focus for testifying is going to be research and preparation and attending the meeting itself. The meeting is going to be publicly announced, so you don't have to worry about scheduling it, which is nice. And then there's not often much of a follow-up. Usually with testifying, you testify over Zoom these days, or usually not during a pandemic, in person. And then that's kind of it. You don't have as much of the, you don't have to worry about scheduling or as much of a follow-up compared to a lobby meeting, but we'll be talking about that in the next slides. So step 1, research and preparation. Know who you're meeting with. It can be really easy to schedule a meeting and really not take the time to prepare. Take some time to learn about the person's background. Have they voted for pro-solar policies before? What does their energy record look like? Where are they taking campaign contributions from? Where did they grow up? Do they have children? Do they have a family? What are they interested in? Even if you can just spend 30 minutes doing a little research, you can Google them, you can go to their campaign website. This can go a really, really long way to know how to best bring this issue to them during your meeting. So just take some time to do a little research, even if it's 30 minutes or more, of course, is great, but at least take some time to know who you're meeting with. Of course, know your goals for the meeting. You want to be clear of why you're scheduling it, what your purpose is. Know your ask, know what you're asking them to do, which we'll talk about further in the next slides. And then finally, if you are in a group, know who's saying what. So take some time to actually have roles for each person. Some examples would be someone who's specifically taking notes, so you make sure you get all the information you need within the meeting. Someone who's moderating. So if I was moderating the meeting, I would make sure that I kind of set the stage when we went into the meeting, that we stayed on schedule, and that the legislator also knew what to expect. And then finally, you can have someone who specifically focuses on asking the legislator to support or oppose the bill that you're focused on, which we'll talk about in future slides. So after you've done some research, make sure you create an agenda. Again, this doesn't have to be super extensive, but it's going to have you run a much more effective meeting, which is ideal for having a legislator do what you want. So start with an introduction. From there, you can go explain why this bill is important, have a strong ask, learn where your legislator stands, and make sure you close and thank them. So for testifying, what you're really going to be focusing on is your introduction, why the bill is important, a strong ask, and then thanking them. You're not necessarily going to be having a conversation with the legislator. Usually you're speaking with a committee, you are kind of explaining your point to that committee, they'll thank you for your time and then move on. So you don't have as much of that back and forth conversation, but it's still really important for testifying that you're taking some time to think through how you want to present yourself and what you want to share with the committee. So some examples, your personal story is really important. Your legislator wants to hear about why this issue is important to his or her constituencies. So some examples would be, let's say that you wanted to go solar, but your HOA restricted you from doing so. You could tell that story. Or maybe you haven't been able to go solar, but you've seen wildfires devastate your state and you're really passionate about solar energy. You could share that. There's a million different stories that we have that legislators want to hear about as to why we're there meeting with them and why this issue is important to them. So make sure to take some time to draft your personal story. You also let them know why this bill is important. So you can kind of talk a little more broadly, explain how the bill solves a problem or impacts your family, community, or business. So this is a time where you can talk, you can bring some statistics in if you would like, but you don't necessarily have to. But if there's something that seems really relevant, for example, once you've done research with your legislator, to the legislator you're meeting with or representative, this could be a good time to talk about it then. And then lastly, have a strong ask. So sometimes also we might be a little bit nervous in these meetings and we might tend to ramble. So it's really important to have a strong ask. And I always suggest practicing it a few times and then working to really just stop talking after the ask, because that actually gives the representative some time to answer your ask. So an example would be, Representative Valdez, will you support bill number 309 to protect net metering in Indiana? So it's very clear and to the point, and then you allow them to respond. It's much easier to say, we have this bill, we think it would be great. Do you think maybe you could support it, right? So just making sure you're really clear, you have a strong ask. If you're in a group, actually having someone be prepared to have that ask ready. I've been in a number of lobby meetings where some legislators kind of want to avoid maybe answering your question because kind of that one-on-one, not necessarily confrontation, but connection can be a little bit uncomfortable. So the stronger ask can be and the more space you leave, the more likely you actually learn where your legislator stands on the issue. And then from there, you're going to find out where they stand. Make sure you listen and take really great notes. And if you are comfortable, respond to the lawmakers' questions and concerns and restate your ask. So it's always great to reiterate that if they ask a question that you don't know the answer to, you don't have to worry about answering it. You can just say, I'm not an expert on this topic. I do know some folks that I can follow up with and I can get you that information. But what I do know is XYZ, like why this bill is important to me. So it is okay to say you don't know the answer and follow up accordingly. And then lastly, make sure to thank them for their time, of course, and have a really clear follow-up plan, which we'll talk about. And again, your personal story matters, so make sure that you take a few minutes to prep it beforehand. Step 2, organize others to join. You can reach out to friends, neighbors, community leaders who may want to attend. This can be really important because it shows a representative that multiple diverse voices and constituencies care about this issue. It's not just you, it's not just the organization you're representing, it's not just your family, it's a diverse group of individuals. So for example, I've ran lobby meetings where I would have a few community members represented, telling their personal story, as well as maybe a leader from a social justice group and a racial justice group and sharing their perspective, and also maybe a local business owner, right? So it gives the representative an idea of, oh, this is a number of different constituencies that care about this issue and not just one specific constituency. That's not necessary, but it is nice to have. And at the very least, you can just bring some friends or neighbors together because everyone has a different story to share. You can work with us at SUN to engage members in your legislative district. We often have lists of folks and we'd be happy to help you connect as well. And then lastly, if you can schedule a group meeting, that is ideal because it'll be more likely you can get that meeting scheduled. But often you can still get one-on-one meetings scheduled, but group meetings are helpful. So don't hesitate to connect with us if you want more folks to reach out to. All right, so we're finally scheduling the meeting. You can request a virtual meeting at least 1 week ahead of time. Email and then a follow-up phone call can really go a long way. It's a really easy thing to do. You can just call and be very polite and say, I sent an email last week. I just wanted to follow up and see if it was received to schedule a meeting with my representative. Phone calls are a lot less easy to ignore than emails, so they can go a long way, even if sometimes we don't enjoy them. If you can pick up the phone, I would suggest going for it if you have not heard back from them within a week. And then finally, if your legislator is not available, you can meet with a staffer or a legislative aide. Often with state representatives, you will be able to meet with them, but sometimes with federal representatives, you may not get the opportunity. However, the staffer and the legislative aide's job is to make sure that the representative knows what their constituents are talking about and care about, so they will relay your message if you end up meeting with them. Okay, so attending the meeting itself, for testifying and lobbying, it's the same attire, the same kind of formality. So of course, looking professional is important. You want to be taken seriously. So semi-formal or formal attire is ideal. And then of course your tone, it's okay to be direct and passionate about the issues that you're representing, but of course also be respectful and polite. At the end of the day, you know, we all want to be treated with respect. So even if you disagree with a legislator on an issue, it's always good to come from a place of respect. So you're going to conduct the meeting as we talked about, we went through this agenda. It's good if you're in a group to have a moderator, a note taker, someone who has the is asking the legislator to support or oppose a bill. If you're doing a one-on-one with the legislator, it's okay to keep the meeting a little more informal, but still take some time to prep an agenda and to do your research. And as I mentioned, if you don't know the answer to a question, it's totally okay. Just let them know that and let them know you can follow up accordingly once you get that answer. So if the representative opposes, of course, be respectful, but you can express disappointment. It will be pretty obvious with the representative if they're just definitely opposed to the bill and there's no way, or maybe if they do have some legitimate concerns and you may be able to move them at least to an undecided vote and then maybe possibly to a yes vote. So be sure to follow up once they say, you know, I'm not going to support this legislation this time. Ask what information or questions they need to reconsider the position, and then follow up as soon as possible with that information. If you aren't sure about a question that's asked, feel free to follow up with us at any time and be happy to help you answer those questions. If a representative supports, great news, it's really exciting. Express gratitude, of course, and then be clear on your follow-up plan. So the timeline and who to contact. I have one story on this. This was back at the beginning of my organizing career in 2013, but I met with a Denver City Council member around a food initiative and was asking them to sign on to this initiative. Great meeting. He agreed to sign on. I was really excited. Didn't really set a good timeline, didn't set a good follow-up plan with him. Just expected that when I followed up, I would hear from him. He didn't get back to me, which is not very common. However, I think that it was a really big learning lesson. It's always good to include now in these kind of trainings to just be sure that you're really clear when they do express that they want to support something, that you know who to follow up with and what the timeline is for them to support it. Because it's always really disappointing when you you think you have a support, but then you aren't able to get that final commitment. And then if the representative is undecided, ask what more information again they need, you can provide. And then again, ask them for a good timeline to follow up with an answer. So, you know, let's say you had a meeting on March 1st, you could say, does following up on March 20th sound good to you? Would that give you enough time to review the information I sent? This is really important too, because often when we create a timeline, it creates a little bit of accountability. So we're on the other side of things, kind of waiting for a response. We're about to follow up. And then often if we don't kind of create a timeline, you know, representatives are really busy. They may have not had time to actually review the materials that you sent them. So if they kind of have that idea in the back of their head that your organization or your group or your community is looking for a response by a certain date, it's more likely you actually get that response. And then with testifying, don't expect for the legislator to let you know their stance. This is often more of an information gathering stage. You will present yourself, introduce yourself and the issue, have an ask, and then usually in person, the way it works is, you know, you'll be in front of the committee, they'll thank you for your time. I'm not exactly sure I was working over Zoom right now, but I do know the state directors have been having folks testify in their states, but similarly, I don't expect for a response directly towards you when you testify. It's a little bit of a less of a back and forth conversation usually. Okay, final step. After the meeting, make sure to review and clarify your meeting notes. So just making sure everyone in the group is on the same page, and then send a follow-up email thanking them for their time. Include any requested information that they asked for. If they supported, thank them. You can clarify next steps for sponsoring the bill. For example, if you're talking to their legislative aide, ask them, what next, do you need anything from us for next steps for being able to sponsor this bill? What does that look like? And then you can also, in the meeting and in the follow-up email, urge them to encourage their colleagues to follow suit. If they're a really big supporter and going to be a champion of this bill, during the meeting, you'll probably be able to tell. And that's always a really great opportunity as well to ask them, what are other colleagues we can follow up with of yours that may be interested in this bill, or are there colleagues you can speak with directly about co-sponsoring this bill? And then if undecided, remind them when you will follow up for an answer. So final takeaways: do your research and prepare, tell your personal story, it is important, have a strong ask, and just be as clear as possible as you can with your ask. Have fun, these meetings can be fun. And then make sure you follow up. Follow-up plan is really essential to make sure that you get the legislator the information they're looking for, as well as hopefully get a response either way if the legislator was undecided or currently opposing the bill. Okay, so now we are going to take the next 25 minutes or so to break out into breakout rooms. So if you are living in one of the states on this list, you will be put in a breakout room with one of our state directors to talk a little bit further about what's happening in your state currently and to connect with the state director. If you do not see your state on this list, then you'll be joining myself and Liz for a 30 Million Solar Homes breakout. We are back. I hope your breakout rooms were fruitful. I know it was for us in 30 Million Solar Homes. We still have a little bit of time left here. So I know in our room, we were kind of just wrapping up a question. We wanted to leave the last 10 minutes for folks to also ask questions about lobbying. Now that you've had some time to kind of get the juices flowing, maybe learn more about what's happening in your state. Maybe you already knew it was happening. Or on the national level. Sometimes this is a good opportunity after the presentation, after having these conversations, to ask any follow-up questions. So if you have a question, feel free. I think it would be best, since there are a lot of us, to drop it in the chat and we'd be happy to answer them, either myself or possibly Liz or a state director if they feel called. Good question. So from Robert, how do you look up a legislator's voting record or rating on sustainability issues? There are some websites you can go to. I probably should send them out afterwards. I have a list, but the best way to start, honestly, is you can Google them, go to their campaign website. It should have on their website a link to the record of their past voting record. So I would start there with their actual website. But also, if you're looking for donations, Follow the Money. It looks like followthemoney.org is a really great website to figure out where they're getting money from. We can definitely follow up with a number of links, but I would start most directly with their campaign website because it should link you to their previous voting records and where they stand on different issues. Oop, there's a lot of, 1 second. Yeah, how can I look up who donates? So followthemoney.org is a great website, really interesting if you like nerding out on those kind of things. With workforce advocacy, would it help to look for staffers involved with unemployment, Department of Children and Families, or just stick to solar? I think it really depends on what you're passionate about. So that's kind of a hard question to answer. Of course, solar is a great job booster, great for the economy. I think, as you all learned, with 30 Million Solar Homes, we have big plans in place, and it would bring literally millions of jobs to our country. So of course, talking about solar when we're talking about workforce advocacy is important, but also, if you're passionate about those other issues, you should advocate on them as well. And if I'm not answering anyone's questions to your liking, feel free to, you can unmute yourself and I'd be happy to answer further. Maple, I missed it, but how to answer how, without saying we will tax the rich, of course. Can you, Maple, maybe in the chat, just clarify what you mean by that question? Not exactly sure, unless someone else knows.
I think it's about how do we pay for these like how do we pay for 30 million solar homes?
Got it. Liz, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we would say that we should pay for it as we pay for, you know, other economic stimulus and climate packages and other major national legislation. I think, you know, this time we're working really hard to make sure that low income and everyday folks benefit from this, and it doesn't all just go to larger corporations. So maybe we need to work more on answering that question, but.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Yeah, that's definitely a hard question to answer, but it's, you know, it's an ongoing process to figure out how we can move forward and also just, again, be really clear that solar is good for job creation and the economy. And
Right. I think if we're
going
to spend money and we want to support the economy, we want to help people recover, we want to create jobs, and we want to help people in the long term, that solar is a really good thing to invest in. And so we're saying this, you know, if we're going to spend money nationally on this, this is a really important piece of that.
Definitely. Thank you to Brett and Annie. If you check out the chat, there was a number of websites I was blanking on, so I'm glad you put them in there. Ballotpedia. It looks like there's an app as well, which is pretty cool. It's called Countable, where you can select your reps and see their history, get alerts when they vote. And then also someone mentioned just getting on their newsletter, because then you can keep up to date with where they're at. We have a question here. I think that 30 million solar homes long-term goal needs to be broken down into specific measures, which would, if adopted, represent big steps forward to that goal. In that context, I'm wondering whether Sun and other organizations have considered a national mandate for states to adopt distributed management operators independent of incumbent distribution utilities. I do not have a great answer for that. Liz, do you have a good answer for that question?
I mean, it's a good idea to have it broken down, and you know, we have a big visionary 5-year 30 million solar homes goal, but yeah, we haven't done a lot of time laying it out, but that's good to think about. And I'm not familiar with distribution management operators, I don't think, although maybe, does that mean like a deregulated market like Texas?
Now, what it means is you've got at the transmission levels, RTOs and ISOs, and this is a concept that the former FERC chair during the Obama administration came up with, where you essentially create independent operators. They don't own the distribution systems. The utilities continue to own them, but they manage them so that you eliminate the utilities' conflict of interest as far as equal access to the distribution systems.
Oh, that's a really interesting idea.
Yeah, I can send the article. Who should I send it to? Give me an email. I'll send it.
Okay, you can send it to advocacy@Solar United Neighbors. I can put it in.
Okay, all right,
Thanks.
I'll do that. Yep.
We have a few more questions here. Thank you everyone for your questions. Do we have any specific calls to action after this meeting? Yes, we do, of course. We will launch a poll here in a moment, but we would love for you to schedule, especially with your state breakouts, if there's legislation right now that is coming to a vote, to work to schedule a meeting with your legislator. Same with 30 million solar homes. We're going to need to be advocating for that and making sure we're starting to have these conversations. So the first action item is, if you are willing, we would love for you to schedule a meeting with your elected officials. We're more than willing to help on the back end and support you in that. So thank you for filling out the poll. Looks like we have most folks who are interested, which is great. On top of that, with 30 million solar homes, of course, signing the petition, sharing it with your networks, as Liz mentioned during her presentation. If you have organizations or businesses you know of or so on that would be interested in signing on to that campaign and supporting it, of course, we would love to work with you as well. But today, the main action item is working to set up a meeting either with your state representative or your federal representative. And it looks like we have really great results. So thank you to everyone who is ready to take that next step. Am I missing anything? There's just a general question. What's the average per home that you see 5 kilowatt, 10 kilowatt for an installation? One of the state directors want to answer that.
I answered that in the chat, Lisa.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
It varies somewhat state to state. 6 to 7 kilowatts is a pretty typical rooftop residential average size.
Great, thank you. And then Walter, I kind of answered this question, but what are the first few national steps to what are the first few national steps that you propose to help move us to the 30 million homes goal? So really sharing this with your networks is a great first step. The more people we can reach, the more people know about this, the more organizations we have supporting it, the more likely we can start to garner support within with our legislators, as well as scheduling a meeting. But definitely follow up with us, because there's going to be a lot more actions to take as we move forward with this. But I would say for now, focus on those steps.
Yeah, and we'll keep people posted. I think we're working on an inside strategy and trying to get a bill or maybe a couple of bills to have something to then make it easier to get included in a climate package or an infrastructure package. But we definitely need more people to connect, more people to support the campaign so we can make sure that you're in the loop. And I think we're going to have a day of action in maybe early April. And, we could use everyone's help to really spread the word on the campaign and build more momentum.
Great. And we definitely, I think the President's Climate Conservation Corps may work nicely with 30 million solar homes. I think that is a good point, something we can look into. Am I missing any questions? Just trying to get through all of them. I have 15 I haven't looked at yet. So
I think people noted that Countable has changed its name to Causes, and it looks like it's available in the App Store and the Google Play Store.
Thanks, Liz. Yes, this meeting is recorded and we will be putting it up on our website, so you'll have access to it. Great. I think we got to all of the questions. Let me know if we did not get, you can just unmute yourself and we can answer it. We have about 3 minutes left here. Great. Okay, so
excuse me. Sorry, I don't have a question. I just wanted to say hi, Lisa. It's good to see you.
Oh my goodness. Hi, Randy. It's been a long time. We used to work together on fracking and renewables a few years ago. So good to see you. Great. I'm just going to share my screen one more time just to give you guys a few resources and pages to follow. Hopefully it goes more smoothly this time around. Okay, so next steps, as we talked about, let us know if you need help connecting with your representative. You can find a ton of solar advocacy resources. We have organizing 101 trainings. We have letters to the editor trainings on our website. And we'll definitely include the slide presentation as well in the next few days onto the website. And then if you have questions about setting up the meeting or otherwise, Liz did drop this in the chat, but just a reminder, you can email advocacy@Solar United Neighbors or connect directly with your state director as well, since you got to connect with them today. And I already launched this poll. So lastly, if you aren't connected with us, make sure to follow us on Facebook. We also have our website, and if you are on Instagram, you can follow us there. As well as we do have state-specific pages. So if you search for example, like Solar United Neighbors in Minnesota or Colorado or Arizona or Texas, Florida, you'll be able to find the state pages and connect with folks directly in your state. So it's just facebook.com/Solar United Neighbors, pretty simple, same with Instagram. And I'll just leave this up for one moment so you guys can jot that down for whoever's interested in joining us. We'd love to connect with you, and we really would love to hear about how setting up the meetings are going, as well as how they go after the fact. So definitely be in touch. All right, with 1 minute to spare, thank you so much again to everyone who joined this evening. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing how lobbying goes. And finally, I forgot to share, we do have some upcoming trainings. March 10th, we will, if you're in a co-op area, be having a training on helping and working to recruit folks in your co-op area and have those conversations, getting comfortable with messaging, brainstorming who you could connect with. Alexis can drop that in the chat. Thank you, Alexis. And then we also will be having a training on writing letters to the editor on March 25th. So we have 2 great trainings coming up, as well as plenty of events coming up in each of your states. So make sure to keep an eye out for all of those trainings and events coming up. And thank you again, everyone, for being here.